Today in Mysterious Buildings, we will be looking into the Integratron. For those of you that are subscribed to our channel, welcome once again. For those of you that are new, hi, my name is MC, and I'm one of the directors here at M2 Holistic Studio. We post videos on holistic architecture, creative projects, and holistic therapies. We welcome you to join the community by hitting the subscribe button for more videos like this. As I drive through the desert, there is a sense of peace, discovery, and profound integration that cannot be put into words. I'm absolutely excited to experience the building up close. At first, I heard about it because of the sound baths that take place here. However, as I read more and more about the building, I became intrigued by the design and the person who designed it. So today, let's dive deep into what is the Integratron and who designed it.
When I say calmly and unexcitedly, a time machine, what does your formula tell you can do? Time machine.
Well, Jack, our formula has no time factor, which electronic formula does have. And on the other hand, electronic science has only had two dimensions to work with, the electric pattern and the magnetic pattern perpendicular to it. And we discovered a third zone, which we call a time zone, and we are working through this zone with an effort to orient the magnetic field to give us other results than our science can obtain at present.
George, it's double talk to me. A time machine means to me a little box that I can go into and go back 5,000 years or forward 10,000 years. Is that what your formula tells you can do?
Well, Jack, this isn't a little box. This is a four-story machine focusing fields that we can orient to produce this zone big enough for a man to get into.
Let me get this straight. In other words, you're telling me, like H.G. Wells imagined 50 years ago, that everything that happened in time is still there to be seen by the recreation electronically of a thought which exists.
Jack, you know how you talk into a tape on a tape recorder and play the interruptions back, identical to the play that you made. The Earth's magnetic field is the same way. You can put interruptions into it and play them back out of it. An associate of ours in creating a magnetic coupler with this principle coupled in the Earth's magnetic field and played back TV shows from stations that aren't even in business anymore.
You mean an experiment has been done to bring out of the air television programs which have been and gone?
Been and gone.
Although there is much speculation on the life of George Van Tassel, one thing is certain: he created a legend of himself, so much so that his writings can be found in a government agency vault, which is open to the public. He was not scared to express himself as an extraterrestrial contactee, which is probably where the controversy around him began. Many skeptics filtered him out. However, he was also an aeronautics engineer, a pilot, a mechanic, a researcher, an author, and perhaps most importantly, the creator of the Integratron. Needless to say, not just anyone studies aeronautical engineering, which is why we continue to dive deeper down the rabbit hole. After gaining his pilot's license, George Van Tassel worked for Lockheed Martin between 1930 and 1947 as an aircraft mechanic and flight inspector. For those of you that are not familiar with aerospace, Lockheed Martin Corporation holds a market capital of around $139.7 billion as of 2024, making it one of the highest ranking worldwide aerospace manufacturers and American defense companies in the world. Lockheed Martin was founded in 1926 and later merged in 1995 with Martin Marietta to form Lockheed Martin. The founders were Alan and Malcolm Lockheed. He also worked with Douglas Aircraft and Hughes Aircraft, where he was the top flight inspector. Yes, you heard me right. Aside from working with one of the world's most important aerospace manufacturers till this day, he also worked with Howard Hughes' company. As a matter of fact, Van Tassel's work with Howard Hughes on the all-wooden craft called the D-2. It was the predecessor of the famous plane known as the Spruce Goose. If you look at the pictures of the interior of the Spruce Goose and the Integratron dome, they're very similar. His work eventually brought him to Southern California in 1947 when he quit his job and bought the land around Giant Rock, which is one of the world's largest freestanding boulders, and he moved his family there. 1953, 40 desolate miles due north of Palm Springs and living literally under a giant rock, he awoke one night to find a strange man standing at the foot of his bed. Beyond the man, about 100 yards away, hovered a glittering, glowing spaceship, seemingly hovering around 8 feet off the ground. Wearing a gray one-piece bodysuit, the scout ship captain introduced himself in English as Solganda from the planet Venus and invited Van Tassel to board his ship. It's here where he divulged the secrets of telepathy, immortality, and the schematics to build the Integratron.
Saucer, don't you?
Well, a flying saucer was a name the press put on this thing. And actually what they termed a flying saucer was nothing but a scout ship from the big carriers.
But I want to go back to that night in 1953. Tell me, where did this happen for people who haven't had your talk or seen you yet?
It happened on my airport, which I've operated for the last 16 years, at Giant Rock Airport, 17 miles north of Yucca Valley in California, or 40 miles north of Palm Springs.
Now, this is a private airport for small aircraft, is it?
This is an airport used both by the military and private aircraft.
You own this airport, sir?
I leased this airport from the United States government. I've operated it for 16 years since I retired from the flight test business in the aviation.
Right now. How old are you now, by the way, Joe?
I'm 54, Jack. Got 3 grown daughters, married, and 11 grandchildren.
You don't mind?
In 1957, Van Tassel broke ground on the Integratron. An all-wood structure with copper coil at its center was designed to harness electromagnetic energy to create a bath-like field of negative ions. The aim of the device, in theory, was that when a person walked through the building, they would emerge from the other side 20 or 30 years younger.
Is about 28 feet tall. The diameter is about 55 feet. At the time this was built, this was going to be a spinning armature, and if it had spun, it was going to be levitated on a cushion of air and pushed slightly forward on a cushion of air. It would have been the largest armature in the world at the time. It's going to spin and generate massive amounts, megavolts of electricity up in the dome. You would have seen arcing, if you've ever seen pictures like Tesla inside, and sparks, it looks like light going all around. That would have been happening in the upper part of the dome, and down in the central column area, people were going to come in, and his vision was thousands of people a day, and they were supposed to be wearing white, would come in, one door, circle around the central column, which we'll see a few times, and then leave. That was it. You didn't need to stay hours in the Integratron to receive this negative ion massive dose. It was going to happen very quick. To me, to look like it is something precision enough that could spin, but you know, what do I know? I looked at a lot of old lighthouses where they need to spin, and the balance has to be so perfect for that central piece, I forget what it's called, to spin like it does. When the building, yes.
Are the schematics or blueprints
There was
still available?
nothing that was found. There's not even the sisters have any blueprints. There's a guy that came here and said before they poured this foundation, he saw a tall copper maze, like a grid, built underneath and then filled with dirt. No one knows. They would not be able to find that unless they had like ground penetrating radar. They've talked about doing that, but he was very distinct in how he remembers this being built. The structure is unique. I mentioned Howard Hughes. You'll see that there are 16 parabolic arches up top, each one supported by a beautiful laminated spar that's curved. It starts about 3 boards thick and then goes to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then finishes at 9. So it tapers up. Those spars were built at the same shipyard that built the Spruce Goose because of Howard Hughes' connection. Howard Hughes funded at least a quarter up to a third of the construction of the Integratron. because when they were bench testing mini models of the Integratron, they were getting some incredible results. If you find the TV interview that George Van Tassel did with this Scottish interviewer, he said they were pulling in, much like the movie Contact, pulling in old TV transmissions that did not exist. You know, back then in the 50s and early 60s, TV was shown once, reruns weren't really happening, and they were finding things from decades old TV signals coming back and actually projecting into nothingness. They could watch TV in thin air on this working model of the Integratron, as George Van Tassel describes. You know, that it's never happened here. The structure was built with no metal fasteners, no screws, no nails. It's a tension structure that was either glued, laminated, or it has a 1-ton cement ring that they call the oculus, pressing down on these 16 parabolics, which you'll see when we go upstairs. But it really is a tension structure. Years ago, about 25 years ago, we had the Landers earthquake. Anybody remember the Landers earthquake? That rocked this area and destroyed many structures out here. The Integratron just rode through it like nothing, 0 damage to it. There is now electricity inside. There are metal fasteners because they've insulated it. There's air conditioning inside for our comfort. But when it was originally built, 0 metal inside of it. It was all supposed to generate its own electricity. It was going to have a copper coil. Mavani mentioned that there used to be a copper spiral downstairs. I imagine it was probably 2 copper spirals because there are 2. You'll see there's a yellow triangle facing up on one side of this column I'm describing, and this column is hollow. You'll see it in the middle. It's about this big in diameter. It's hollow. What I have up there is one big speaker blasting down into it. When we started experimenting here, we had a dozen same-size speakers plus subwoofers. It was over the top, louder than a jet engine, and it does not need to be that. It takes frequency and magnifies it, but it was just part of my learning curve to see how little it needed to resonate and reverberate. So I guess it's time to go in. Remember George Van Tassel, and I think it's a big overlooked thing that he called this building a tabernacle. Tabernacle is a big word because to the Jews it was a place where you communicated with God. It was a portable device they took around in their 40 years out in the desert. They took a big tent. The Ark of the Covenant was with them. The Ark of the Covenant stayed in this private thing called the Holy of Holies, but that was the tabernacle. That he chose to call this a tabernacle, a place that you would converse with the gods or God, I think says a whole lot about what his real vision might have really been. I've had experiences in here that sound, beyond the realm of reality, but I have seen the sky open up in between the spars where all this plywood just disappears and becomes invisible. I saw lights flashing down in patterns down these spars. I saw what looked like almost like a wormhole of lights emitting out of that oculus, going up and crossing this way. The vision I got, that 8 of these spars were kind of insinuating this and the other 8 insinuating this, and that's what I saw was like 8 counter-rotating against 8. It was very mechanical. It was like I got to see, and this kind of like semi-transparent machinery above these domes. It was almost like this is, and if this is a machine, it doesn't look very big compared to the Great Pyramid of Giza or other machines that are supposedly frequency generators. But if you consider, it has this column, and in the bottom of this hollow column is a copper pipe, like a stand pipe. No one knows how deep it goes. My guess is it goes to the aquifer. Just like George Tesla built Wardenclyffe Tower in New Jersey. It had a stanchion that went deep into the ground and connected with water. I'm guessing that this did the same thing, the aquifer water. So all of a sudden, this becomes a really big machine. This is just like the speaker coil, and the aquifer system becomes the whole rest of the machine. So I really believe that that's a potential. As soon as I saw that copper standpipe, I'm like, there's so much more that we do not know about how this was going to work. So when we go into time, it totally meshes perfectly with discoveries being made by other people, whether it's the number sequences or the geometry that we're going to talk about. Something about it just says, yes, this is information that is right, and I hope you leave today being lit up in a way that maybe you never have been. You have great days, either wedding or the birth of a child or something. I hope this day stands out as a day when you just go, man, my whole world just expanded, because that's what it did for me the first time I came here, and it has never stopped expanding since then. So I hope that's what happens for all of us today. No expectation, no guarantees, but we'll go in this door right here.
You're gonna get into the name?
The name of?
Integratron, where did it come
Oh, Integratron. So I think that's a little bit telling. There were some working names for the Integratron, and I forget them now. I read an article that I cannot find, and one of them was the generator or the something, I forget. And I thought it was interesting that the last titles or working movie titles, it wasn't called the Integratron when George Van Tassel was building it until much later. It was called the Integratron in the late 50s, early 60s, but it wasn't then. But by the time it was done, Integra means it's all complete. It's got all the pieces it needs. To me, the Integratron is actually, I think George Van Tassel, and this is insane of me to say that, might have been a little misdirected. I think he took science that he knew of the day and sort of forced them to fit this design. I truly believe a download that I got from the very first night I was here with the gongs, I came down and I heard a male voice tell me about 8 or 9 different specific things about the Integratron. None of them made sense to me at the time. How it was built, functions of 8, people wearing white, downstairs was activation, all that stuff. I told Joanne, one of the sisters, she goes, "You've never read anything." And I go, "No, up to yesterday, I've never even heard of this place." And she goes, "Well, whatever voice that was telling you something was telling you correct information." So it's been a real trip, but to me, I think George might have got a little too into his Tesla obsession, thinking this was going to be a giant electrostatic generator, when actually it's a giant organic organ, almost like an inside of a, you'll look inside, it feels like you're inside a piano, a circular guitar, a circular piano. It's beautiful, and what it does for frequency is so unique. I think that's much more aligned to its true purpose.
Architecturally speaking, it is quite phenomenal. The upper level is a dome of all exposed wood. Sloganda told him not to use any metal in the construction. The design is based on an aircraft fuselage. It's a hemispherical umbrella dome made of glulam ribs connected with wooden dowels. There is a 1.5-ton concrete and micarta non-metallic oculus made by Westinghouse for aerospace use. Yes, you heard me right, by Westinghouse. It's an immaculately preserved artifact of mid-century modernist design and a totem of the 1950s UFO culture. There were supposed to be 64 aluminum die rods, or extended beams intended to spin and generate electrostatic energy. He was reading about Nikola Tesla and others, and Van Tassel thought that he could generate 50,000 volts and regulate the energy of a human cell. Cells give off energy, and the Integratron was going to generate trillions of negative ions. As cells age, they no longer give off the proper charge, which in turn causes aging and health problems. He wanted to recharge the cells because he thought that electricity was the answer to anti-aging properties. Scientists in the field of anti-aging have seen the effects and the importance of telomeres. Telomeres are the DNA protein structures located at the end of the chromosomes that protect the genome and ensure proper DNA replication when cells divide. Essentially, the cells die because they can no longer divide successfully, and this is what causes aging. So Van Tassel's theory and proposal could be an interesting exploration into anti-aging technology that we have yet to see. Ironically, our global appreciation towards health has dramatically changed since 2020. We have noticed how vulnerable we are as species to whatever we're exposed to in the environment that surrounds us. And sadly, the research, such as the one held by Van Tassel, is an ever-fleeting dream in today's world.
3 holes to perfectly be in tune 288 or 360 or 432. So usually holes are in the neighborhood of, that's as close as you can get. They ordered 3 custom holes to match those frequencies. So, and at some point, you're going to hear all of it. You're going to hear this tone coming from the hole, and this is a very small speaker. It's about this big, but I'm playing it. It's all the way lower down to the bottom of this cavity, and I might even just, to start it, let you hear what resonance actually is. So I'm going to pick a tone of, say, 85 hertz. So that's 85 hertz, not far away from 72. I'm going to lower it to 72. All of a sudden, it sounds like it's a massive speaker because it's adding energy as it's spiraling up here, but it's resonating here. The reason it sounds so full and thick is the entire building now is in resonance with this particular tone, which is coincidence. I wouldn't have expected that the tone that we're always talking about, or one of the tones, is actually, I mean, it's vibrating this hatch, and even the floor out here if you get close to it. So I'm going to let this run. I'm going to let them do their 3 bowls. We're going to add a jump, or should I get you started? And then I can do that.
Here in our studio, we are aware of our electric makeup and how we share energy with the world that surrounds us. Although this is seen as a pseudoscience by many, we believe there are many answers that are found in the occult aspects of what is commonly shared to the public. We recognize and appreciate analytical minds such as the one of Van Tassel in the exploration of new forms of betterment regarding design integration. We have also seen firsthand how engineers and scientists face unparalleled scrutiny worldwide as far as patents are concerned and patent ownership, which makes it even harder for this research to continue with transparency and a philanthropic spirit to share and be shared with the world. In the public records written by Van Tassel, we found this to be a really insightful message to share with you all. Man, you need not chart a roadway through the stars to me. You need not cross the land or search beyond the sea. You will find me in the smile, in the look of someone you have helped along the way. You only have to search your heart and start to find that I am there wherever you may be. Though all the roads may lead to me, though many search eternally to find a shortcut in the way, I am there and here as close as you to me. So reach not for stars afar, search not in the distance in the future or the past. At last you are aware that I am there within your being, watching how you treat the me in others of my parts. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. Your cooperation means a lot to us. Feel free to check out our next video on Giant Rock. Thank you, and until next time.